I was standing in the checkout line at the grocery store waiting to snag a carton of eggs on clearance, when the glowing text suddenly materialized in the air in front of me. So, this is the phantom ideal the male lead has been obsessing over all these months. Look closely, the villainous adopted daughter, actually, looks a lot like her. Because of that resemblance, the male lead blindly favors the adopted kid. The actual heroine never stood a chance. The heroine was depressed for years. It wasn't until she was diagnosed with terminal cancer that the male lead finally woke up and regretted everything. A violent shudder ripped through me. I stood frozen in the middle of the aisle, my hand hovering over the carton. A phantom ideal? A tragic muse? But I'm 50 years old. Because I had stopped moving, the woman behind me seized the opportunity. She reached right past my elbow and snatched the largest, most pristine carton of jumbo eggs from the display. My old friend Barb nudged me hard in the ribs. "What are you doing, Maggie? You just gonna let her take your eggs?" I blinked, the neon lights of the supermarket coming back into focus, and hurriedly grabbed a different carton, dropping it into my basket. By the time Barb and I squeezed our way out of the crowd and headed toward the registers, the floating lines of text were still scrolling relentlessly across my vision. As a billionaire CEO, the male lead gave the heroine plenty of money, but he never gave her an ounce of love. Yeah, the poor heroine. She loved him so much. If he's emotionally unavailable, fine. But why does he unconditionally pamper the evil adopted daughter? What's his problem? A hand suddenly waved in front of my face. Earth to Margaret. You're spacing out again. Barb frowned, eyeing me up and down. Then, as if struck by a sudden epiphany, she clapped her hands together. Oh, I get it. Arthur asked you to the community center dance yesterday, didn't he? Finally falling in love. If you ask me, Arthur is a catch. Back in the day, he was the most handsome guy in the county. Barb was the undisputed gossip queen of our little social circle. She thrived on sniffing out secrets. Ever since Arthur made his feelings known a little over 6 months ago, she hadn't stopped teasing me about it. I'm just saying, a twilight romance isn't the worst idea in the world, she prattled on. Arthur is financially stable, his kids are all grown and living in Europe. I waved her off, exhausted. Drop it, Barb. I'm used to being on my own. Barb and her husband had a wonderful marriage. Even in their golden years, they still liked to play at romance. I was different. I had lived on this earth for half a century and had never been married. No strings, no attachments, no lingering regrets. My days were quiet, unhurried, and perfectly my own. But today, these bizarre, hallucinatory comments had appeared out of nowhere, calling me the phantom ideal of some fictional male lead. What an absolute joke. I'm retired. I have a pension. I don't have time for this nonsense. I went home and started cooking dinner. The text began scrolling again against the backdrop of my kitchen cabinets. The heroine accidentally broke a picture frame today, and the male lead screamed at her. She's still hiding in her room crying. Yeah, she hasn't even eaten dinner. The housekeeper tried to bring her some food, but the male lead stopped her. Said he wanted to teach the heroine a lesson. You've gone too far this time. You garbage CEO. Before I retired, I was a high school teacher. I made a decent living. As an older woman with a bit of money and a lot of free time, I'd read my fair share of romance novels. The whole billionaire loves the evil stand-in while the true heroine gets terminal cancer trope? I'd read at least 80 variations of that exact story. But according to the glowing commentary, this specific tragedy was somehow connected to me. The so-called villainous was only receiving the male lead's twisted, unconditional love because she looked like me. And that favoritism was indirectly driving the heroine toward a miserable, lonely death. My conscience simply couldn't take it. Through the comments, I pieced together the details. The male lead was Nathaniel Bancroft, the 30-year-old CEO of Bancroft Holdings, based in Chicago. I was 20 years older than him. How on earth did I become the object of his eternal fixation? I wrestled with it all night, but by dawn, I had booked a flight to Chicago. After a cab ride that cost entirely too much, I finally stood before the towering wrought iron gates of the Bancroft estate in the affluent North Shore suburbs, only to discover, unsurprisingly, that I couldn't even get past the security checkpoint. I was standing on the sidewalk, seriously debating whether I should try to fake my way in as a newly hired maid, when the comments suddenly exploded. The girls are home from school. School? I froze. A second later, a sleek black Bentley glided down the street and pulled to a smooth stop just outside the estate gates. The tinted rear window rolled down, and a small, delicate face peered out. The girl looked at me with cautious, innocent curiosity. "Excuse me, ma'am? Do you need some help?" Before I could even open my mouth, the text went wild. Sobbing. Our baby heroine is just too sweet. She's living in a nightmare, but the second she sees someone who needs help, she still reaches out. And this beautiful angel ends up with terminal cancer. My heart is literally breaking. It's all Nathaniel's fault. Just you wait, Nathaniel Bancroft. I'm going to climb through this screen and rip your throat out. Before I could reply to the sweet girl, another face appeared from the shadows of the back seat. Two small heads, side by side. Only, the one on the right had a voice like grinding glass. "You're being pathetic again, Clementine," the second girl sneered. "Did you forget how hard you cried the last time you got scammed by a beggar? The villainess is so spoiled. Does she even remember how hard she tried to suck up to Clementine when she first moved into this house? Right? A perfectly good kid, completely warped. You can't entirely blame her. Kids mirror the adults around them. She sees Nathaniel treating Clementine like trash, so she just copies him. At the end of the story, when Clementine gets cancer, Nathaniel finally regrets everything and kicks the villainess out. But by then, he's already spoiled her beyond repair. She can't survive on her own and literally starves to death on the streets. Basically, Nathaniel ruins everyone. Amidst the furious debate scrolling before my eyes, I stood rooted to the pavement, utterly dumbfounded. Wait a minute. Why did no one mention that the heroine and the villainess in this tragic saga were currently just two little kids? I lied. I told them I had come to Chicago looking for work and had my purse stolen at the station. I just needed a little something to eat. Without a second of hesitation, Clementine said, "Please get in the car. We have food at the house. I'll have the chef make you something." Isabel, the younger girl, let out a sharp, aristocratic scoff. She looked at me with naked disgust. "Who goes looking for a job outside a gated billionaire's community? You're so stupid, Clementine. You deserve to get scammed. When Dad gets home, He's going to scream at you for this. At the mention of their father, Nathaniel, a shadow of genuine sorrow flickered across Clementine's eyes. But she forced a brave, wavering smile and looked back at me.
Please, ma'am.
Come inside. I slid into the front passenger seat and reached for the seatbelt. Behind me, Isabel scoffed again. I studied her in the rearview mirror. She couldn't have been more than 7 or 8 years old.
But the slight upward
tilt of her eyes, and that distinct, dark beauty mark resting just beneath her left eye. It did look like me. But that was where the resemblance ended. I am 50 years old. The silver in my hair is undeniable, the lines around my mouth etched deep by decades of living. She was just a cruel little child. It didn't take long for me to follow Clementine and Isabel into the cavernous Bancroft mansion. The interior was a masterclass in cold, sterile wealth. Marble floors, vaulted ceilings, and staff bustling about like silent ghosts. The house lacked even a single ounce of warmth. Clementine dropped her backpack on an absurdly expensive leather sofa and scurried toward the kitchen on her short little legs. Isabel simply rolled her eyes, swinging her designer backpack over her shoulder as she marched upstairs. A few minutes later, Clementine reappeared, carefully balancing a plate with a thick turkey sandwich.
Here, ma'am.
You can eat this. She tilted her head back, offering me the sweetest, most blinding smile. I'll go pour you a glass of milk. Looking into her wide, earnest eyes and her soft, flushed cheeks, I felt my heart melt into a puddle. The comments were practically howling.
Ah,
Clementine is so cute I could die. If Nathaniel doesn't want this perfect angel, can I please adopt her? Honestly, I'm just confused. This random lady is old. Why would the CEO use her as his ultimate phantom ideal? Her curiosity matched my own perfectly. Unfortunately, the comments debated it for a while and came up with absolutely nothing. They eventually just blamed the author for being a hack who wrote a logical plot. Holes just to torture the heroine. I had just finished the last bite of my sandwich when Isabel came sauntering back down the grand staircase. Dad comes back from his business trip tonight, Isabel announced, a wicked glint in her eye. The teacher said we need a parent's signature on our report cards. Have you figured out how you're going to explain failing math yet, Clementine? At the mention of the failing grade, the soft smile vanished from Clementine's face. Her shoulders slumped, and she bowed her head in defeat. The comments wept for her. Poor Clementine. She had food poisoning the day of the test. She was in agony for 2 hours and couldn't even finish the paper. Nathaniel didn't even ask. He just saw the grade, screamed at her, and then praised the villainous right in front of her. Clementine cried in her room all night. I looked at Clementine. She was gripping the straps of her backpack, her knuckles white, practically trembling where she stood. I couldn't help myself. Bring me the test, I said softly. I'll sign it for you. Neither of them seemed to expect that. Both girls froze. After a long, agonizing moment, Clementine reached into her bag, bit her lip, and handed me the crumpled math test. I didn't finish it, she whispered. I took it. It was a second-grade math assessment. At the top, in aggressive red ink, was a glaring 43%. Large sections of the paper were completely blank. The long addition and word problems were almost entirely untouched. Isabel leaned over to sneer at it. It's so easy. I got 100%. Dad is going to give me a massive reward later. I'm going to make him buy me that new designer princess dress. I ignored her. I just put a gentle arm around Clementine's narrow shoulders. Tell me the truth, I said quietly, looking into her eyes. Do you know how to do these problems? Encouraged by my steady gaze, Clementine gave a tiny, almost imperceptible nod. Beside us, Isabel shrieked. You're lying. If you knew how to do them, why didn't you write the answers? You're just scared Dad is going to yell at you again. I cut her off. My voice was calm, but sharp enough to slice glass. Little girl, this is your older sister. Speaking to her with that kind of venom is hardly what I would call good breeding. Clementine's head whipped up. She stared at me, her mouth slightly parted in shock. Isabel looked like I had just slapped her. Her face twisted in ugly indignation. You're literally a beggar. How dare you lecture me, she screamed, completely losing her composure. You have no right to talk to me. Get out of my house. Get out right now. Just then, the heavy oak front doors swung open. A chorus of staff voices murmured, Welcome home, Mr. Bancroft. Both little girls instantly went rigid. In the blink of an eye, I watched Isabel undergo a terrifying metamorphosis. She rubbed her eyes furiously until they were red, squeezed out a single, glittering tear, and looked past me with an expression of pure, victimized terror. Daddy. Clementine found a crazy beggar on the street and forced her inside. I tried to tell her it wasn't safe, but she wouldn't listen. And then they both called me uneducated. Daddy, I'm scared. The floating text exploded into a frenzy of rage. This manipulative little monster. I want to strangle her. It's over. Nathaniel already comes home in a bad mood on this day. He's going to destroy Clementine. Random grandma. Please do something. Channel your inner phantom ideal. Sure enough. A second later, a voice like a frozen blade cut through the foyer. Isabel. Apologize to your sister. Right now. Clementine flinched violently. I pulled her tighter against my side, resting a hand on her hair to soothe her. It's okay, I whispered. Don't be scared. I stood up straight and slowly turned around. My eyes met the gaze of a tall, imposing man. He was young, undeniably handsome, with sharp, aristocratic features, but there was a suffocating, violent gloom baked into his expression. This was the male lead, Nathaniel Bancroft. I steadied my breathing. Mr. Bancroft. Hello. Nathaniel didn't speak. He just stared at me. I watched his pupils glow wide, consuming the irises. I watched his Adam's apple bob frantically as his breathing hitched. I frowned, momentarily thrown off by his intense reaction. I quickly tried to explain myself. I'm not a beggar. I came to Chicago looking for work. My name is Margaret Callahan. The man's gaze suddenly sharpened into something terrifying. His jaw locked. Through clenched teeth, he forced out a single trembling sentence. What did you say your name was? The air in the grand foyer seemed to solidify. Nathaniel stared at me with an intensity that bordered on madness. Beneath the cold, ruthless exterior of the billionaire CEO, a storm of incomprehensible emotion was violently churning. His breathing grew ragged. Beside me, Isabel, misinterpreting the silence, assumed Nathaniel was gearing up for a catastrophic rage. She tilted her chin up triumphantly. Daddy, kick this liar out. She yelled at me. Clementine's face drained of all color. She gripped the hem of my shirt with tiny, trembling fists and begged in a whisper, Dad, please don't kick her out. I brought her inside. If you have to punish someone, punish me. The comments were panicking. Oh God, he's furious. That look in his eyes is terrifying. Is he going to hit someone? Run, Grandma, run. This CEO is a literal psychopath. But then, defying every expectation, Nathaniel didn't explode. His massive frame gave a violent shudder. The leather briefcase in his hand slipped from his grip, hitting the marble floor with a deafening crack. He moved toward me in long, urgent strides. And then, just a single step away, he stopped dead. Before my eyes, the ruthless billionaire's eyes flooded with red. Mrs. Callahan. His voice broke. It was a fragile, disbelieving rasp. Is it you, Margaret Callahan? I froze. Mrs. Callahan? A memory, buried beneath decades of dust, suddenly clawed its way to the surface of my mind. 20 years ago, I was teaching at an underfunded public school deep in the Appalachian Mountains. That summer, a ring of kidnappers had snatched a wealthy little boy who had been brought out to the country for vacation. I had rallied the entire town. We combed the mountains all night with flashlights and dogs. I was the one who finally found him, shivering, burning with a lethal fever, and covered in bruises in an abandoned hunting cabin. When one of the kidnappers cornered us, I threw myself over the boy. I took a hunting knife to my shoulder blade for him. To this day, there is an ugly, jagged scar across my back. The boy stayed in my tiny, drafty house for 2 weeks, recovering, until his powerful family finally tracked him down. On the day he left, he gripped my hand with surprising strength. Through heavy tears, he swore to me that when he grew up, he would come back and repay me. I had laughed it off as the dramatic promise of a traumatized child and simply ruffled his hair. Later, I moved back to the Midwest, changed schools, changed my phone number. I hadn't thought about that terrifying week in 20 years. Could it be? I scrutinized the towering, immaculately dressed man standing before me. I searched the harsh, unyielding lines of his face for the ghost of that frail, terrified little boy. Are you little Nate? I asked tentatively. The moment the words left my mouth, Nathaniel dropped heavily to one knee. He grabbed my hand, burying his face against my knuckles, and wept. The tears spilled over his cheeks, soaking my skin. It's me, Mrs. Callahan. It's Nate, he choked out, his shoulders heaving. I've been looking for you for 20 years. The sheer absurdity of the scene left everyone in the room paralyzed. Clementine's eyes were the size of saucers. She had entirely forgotten to be afraid. Isabel looked like someone had just clamped a hand around her throat, her jaw hung slack, utterly incapable of making a sound. The housekeeper, who had been carrying a tray of ice water, dropped it, sending crystal shattering across the foyer. But no one was more stunned than the floating comments. Holy shit. Holy shit. Am I hallucinating? Did the psychopathic CEO just drop to his knees for a random grandma? What the hell do you mean, phantom ideal? She's his literal savior and childhood mentor. Author, show yourself. Who calls a woman who took a knife for them a phantom ideal romance trope? She's literally a living saint. Oh my God. The villainous, the beauty mark under the eye. It matches the grandma. Nathaniel was looking for a stand-in? A stand-in for his mother figure? I'm dying. This man has a severe Oedipus/savior complex, and the author somehow worked it into a toxic romantic tragedy. I looked down at the 30-year-old president of a multinational conglomerate, weeping into my hand like a lost toddler, and let out a long, heavy sigh. I have lived 50 years. I have seen a lot of things. But having a grown man in a bespoke Tom Ford suit cling to my knees and bawl was definitely a first. All right, that's enough. Stand up. I patted him firmly on the shoulder, effortlessly sliding back into the authoritative tone I used to manage a classroom of unruly teenagers. Look at you, wrinkling your suit. Pull yourself together. You're scaring the children. Instantly, Nathaniel scrambled to his feet, obedient as a scolded schoolboy. He wiped his face haphazardly with his sleeve, vibrating with an ecstatic, chaotic energy. Mrs. Callahan, what are you doing in Chicago? Did you say you lost your purse? Are you really looking for a job? What do you need? I'll give you half my shares in Bancroft Holdings right now. No, I'll give you the whole company. I stared at him. Good Lord. 20 years later, the boy has lost his mind. I cleared my throat and pointed to Clementine, who was still standing in a state of bewildered shock. I don't need your corporate shares, I said dryly. I'm retired. I have time on my hands. I looked around the cavernous, unhappy house. This older daughter of yours seems like a sweet girl. If you don't mind, I think I'll stay here. I'll be her governess. Nathaniel blinked, his gaze following my finger to Clementine. A complicated, guilt-ridden shadow crossed his face. But he didn't hesitate for a fraction of a second. Yes, absolutely. As long as you stay, everyone in the Bancroft estate answers to you. Housekeeper, he barked, his voice instantly reverting to its terrifying, commanding baseline. Prepare the largest suite in the south wing immediately. Use the imported linens. Mrs. Callahan is moving in. The housekeeper scrambled away over the broken glass. I nodded, satisfied. Excellent. Phase 1. Infiltrate the enemy base. Complete. Now it was time to settle some debts. I turned my gaze to the grand staircase, where Isabel was standing, her face cycling rapidly through shades of green and stark white. Now, little girl, I said, a dangerous, polite smile curving my lips. Who exactly were you calling a beggar? Isabel stumbled backward, her hand gripping the banister in terror. She looked frantically at Nathaniel. Daddy. Normally, all it took was a single pout for Nathaniel to blindly take her side against anyone. But today, Nathaniel's face was carved from granite. He may have favored Isabel, but his reverence for me eclipsed everything else in his universe. Isabel. Nathaniel's voice was absolute zero. Did you speak disrespectfully to Mrs. Callahan? Isabel's eyes instantly filled with tears, the waterworks arriving right on cue. Daddy, I didn't know she was your teacher. I was just worried Clementine was getting scammed by a stranger. And Clementine called me uneducated first, she cried, pointing an accusing finger at her sister, flawlessly flipping the script. Clementine flinched, instinctively shrinking behind my back to hide. The text went nuclear. This manipulative little brat. God, she's such a good actor. She's the one who started it. Clementine literally didn't say a word. Nate, you idiot. Don't believe her. Check the security cameras. I patted Clementine's hand to anchor her. Then, I looked at Isabel and spoke with slow, deliberate enunciation. Little girl, lying is a very ugly habit. I, as an elder, offered you a mild correction. Not only did you refuse to listen, you screamed at me to get out of your house. Is that what you call worrying about your sister? Nathaniel's face turned completely black. He knew me too well. Even 20 years ago, I was known as an uncompromising disciplinarian who never let a lie slide. If I said Isabel was the aggressor, it was gospel. Isabel, Nathaniel roared, making the crystal chandelier above us vibrate. Get down here and apologize to Mrs. Callahan. And apologize to your sister. Isabel stared at him in horror. This was the first time Nathaniel had ever truly unleashed his temper on her. And he was doing it to defend Clementine. She bit her lip so hard it almost bled, glaring at me with a potent, toxic mixture of unwillingness and pure malice. But crushed beneath the sheer weight of Nathaniel's fury, she dragged her feet down the stairs. She offered a stiff, deeply insincere bow. I'm sorry, Mrs. Callahan. I'm sorry, Clementine. I didn't acknowledge the apology. I'd seen enough fake contrition in my 30 years of teaching to spot it a mile away. Instead, I turned to Nathaniel.
Nate.
Since I am officially taking on the role of governess, I assume the education and discipline of both these girls falls entirely under my jurisdiction. Nathaniel nodded frantically. Of course. You have absolute authority. Whatever you see fit, do it. I smiled. Good. I reached into my bag and pulled out the crumpled math test with a glaring 43% written in red ink. Then let's have a little chat about their academic progress. I handed the test directly to Nathaniel. Clementine told me she had terrible stomach pains the day of this test. She couldn't finish it. I've reviewed the paper. The basic calculations and the word problems are entirely blank. But looking at her eyes, she is clearly a bright child. As her father, did you bother to investigate why she was in such agony that morning? Nathaniel froze. He stared at the red ink, his brow furrowing deeply. Stomach pains? I didn't know. The comments flooded in with furious exposition. You blind fool. Isabel intentionally swapped Clementine's milk with an expired carton that morning. Clementine was throwing up in the school bathroom. The fact that she even managed a 43% from just the multiple choice is a miracle. You didn't even ask how she was. You just yelled at her. You don't deserve to be a father. I couldn't read the details of the expired milk plot, but I didn't need to. I could infer exactly what had happened. I pinned Nathaniel beneath a freezing glare. You didn't know? Your child was violently ill during school hours, and the school didn't call you. A cold sweat broke out across Nathaniel's forehead. I was in a board meeting. My assistant had my phone. He just said the teacher called to say Clementine failed her midterm. I just assumed she wasn't applying herself. So, without a single question, without a single glance, you simply condemned your own child. My voice wasn't loud, but it carried the crushing weight of a gavel. Nathaniel bowed his head, his face burning with a profound, suffocating shame. I was wrong, Mrs. Callahan. I didn't offer him absolution. I turned my attention back to Isabel. You mentioned earlier that you scored a perfect 100%. Is that correct? Isabel tilted her chin up. Her eyes were still red from crying, but the familiar arrogance had returned. Yes, because I'm smarter than Clementine. Wonderful, I said, giving her a tight nod. Go upstairs, bring your test down, and let me see it. Isabel sprinted up the stairs without hesitation, returning a minute later to confidently thrust the perfect paper into my hands. I examined it closely. The handwriting was neat. The answers were flawless. But it took me less than 10 seconds to spot the glaring flaw. I had been grading papers for 30 years. I knew exactly how a 7-year-old's brain processed logic versus an adult's. The extra credit problem at the bottom of the page utilized advanced algebraic substitution, a cognitive leap a second grader simply couldn't make, let alone write out in perfect, sequential formatting. I let out a low, dry chuckle. Did you write this test yourself? Isabel's face paled slightly, but she doubled down. Of course I did. Is that right? I pulled a pen from my bag, flipped her perfect test over, and quickly wrote out a nearly identical algebraic problem on the blank back, swapping out a few key integers. Then I'd like you to sit right here, in front of me, and solve this one. Isabel stared at the equation on the paper, and completely froze. The silence in the grand foyer was deafening. Isabel gripped the pen, her palms sweating profusely. She chewed on her bottom lip, but after 2 full minutes, she hadn't written a single digit. Nathaniel, finally realizing something was catastrophically wrong, stepped closer. He looked down at the problem I had written, and then compared it to the immaculate, step-by-step algebraic solution on the front of her test. He wasn't a teacher, but he was a ruthless, brilliant businessman. He recognized fraud when it was staring him in the face. Isabel. Nathaniel's voice was a low, terrifying rumble. What is the meaning of this? Isabel broke. She dropped the pen and let out a piercing wail. My tutor wrote it for me. I wanted the reward. I really wanted that designer princess dress. I'm sorry. The comments were throwing a parade. Ha 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 ha. Busted. Grandma is a god. 30 years of teaching experience taking down a literal child. We love to see it. Take that, you little manipulator. Open your eyes, Nate. This is the brat you've been favoring. Nathaniel was vibrating with rage. For years, he had convinced himself that Isabel was brilliant, resilient, and fiercely intelligent, traits he associated with me, his beloved Mrs. Callahan. Because of that projection, he had spoiled her relentlessly, while viewing his own flesh and blood, Clementine, as a slow, disappointing burden. Now the illusion was shattered. The truth was ugly and humiliating. Call the tutor immediately. Tell him he's fired, and I'll make sure he never works in this city again. Nathaniel roared at a terrified staff member. Then, he pointed a trembling finger at Isabel. As of today, your allowance is gone. Don't even think about that dress. Go to your room and write a 1,000-word apology. Isabel sobbed hysterically as she fled up the stairs. Once she was gone, Nathaniel turned around. He looked at Clementine, who was still trying to make herself as small as possible behind my legs. His eyes were heavy with a crushing, belated guilt. Clementine. He took a hesitant step forward, reaching out a hand to stroke her hair. Clementine flinched. She shrank back, her shoulder hitting my hip to avoid his touch. Nathaniel's hand froze in midair. A raw, devastating pain fractured his stoic expression. I sighed softly and stepped forward, pulling Clementine securely against my side. Rome wasn't built in a day, Nate. And neither is a child's trauma. You didn't just miss the truth of a single test. You systematically destroyed your daughter's trust in you. If you want to fix it, you're going to have to earn it back. Slowly, Nathaniel swallowed hard and nodded solemnly. I understand, Mrs. Callahan. From now on, whatever you say goes. I looked down and stroked Clementine's soft hair. Sweetheart, are you hungry? Do you want me to make you something warm? Clementine looked up at me. Her large, soulful eyes were bright with unshed tears, and she nodded emphatically. Yes, please. I want noodles. Okay, I said, giving her a reassuring squeeze. I'll make you chicken noodle soup from scratch. I'll roll the dough myself. That evening, I commandeered the massive industrial kitchen and rolled out fresh pasta, making a steaming, rich bowl of chicken and dumplings for Clementine. Nathaniel shamelessly hovered around the kitchen island until I gave in and handed him a bowl too. Watching this billionaire in a three-piece suit hunch over the counter aggressively slurping down noodles like he hadn't eaten in a week, I briefly saw the ghost of that starving little boy I had rescued from the mountains. The comments were rolling by in a steady, joyful stream.
Sobbing.
Look how fast Clementine is eating. How long has it been since she had a proper, hot meal? Nathaniel eats like he's been starved. He literally tried to steal Clementine's extra dumpling. Grandma's cooking must be insane. I want a bowl. After dinner, I held Clementine's hand and walked her upstairs. Her bedroom was at the very end of a long, drafty corridor in the north wing. It was small, cold, and shadowed. In contrast, Isabel's room was the primary guest suite in the sun-drenched south wing, decorated like an absurd velvet-lined princess castle. I frowned. Housekeeper, I called out. The woman appeared almost instantly. Tomorrow, hire a crew. Move Clementine's belongings into the suite right next to mine in the south wing. Replace all the furniture. Make it bright. Paint it whatever color the girl actually likes. The housekeeper hesitated, glancing nervously at Nathaniel, who was currently serving his mandatory 30-minute timeout, standing quietly in the corner of the living room, a punishment I had instated for stealing his daughter's dumpling. Hearing me, Nathaniel immediately yelled from his corner, "Do exactly what Mrs. Callahan says. Have it done by tomorrow afternoon." The housekeeper nodded frantically and scurried away. I drew a warm bath for Clementine, helped her into a set of clean, soft pajamas, and tucked her under the heavy duvet. "Mrs. Callahan?" Clementine gripped my hand, her voice barely a whisper. "Are you really going to live here with us?" I looked into her anxious, deeply scarred eyes, and felt an ache in my chest. "Of course I am," I said softly. "I'm going to stay right here until I see you go off to college." Clementine finally released a breath she seemed to have been holding her entire life. A tiny, secure smile grazed her lips, and she closed her eyes, falling into a deep, uninterrupted sleep. I sat at the edge of the bed in the dark, watching her chest rise and fall. I thought about the words in the glowing text: terminal cancer. In the original trajectory of this twisted universe, Clementine developed late-stage stomach cancer at 20 years old, the result of chronic malnutrition, the stress of constant emotional abuse, and severe depression. I was not going to let that happen. The very next morning, I dragged Nathaniel by the ear and marched Clementine straight into the best private pediatric hospital in Chicago. Full workup, especially the gastrointestinal tract. When the test results came back, Nathaniel looked like he was going to vomit. The senior gastroenterologist held the chart, his expression furious. "This child is 8 years old. How does she have severe chronic superficial gastritis and the beginnings of a gastric ulcer? What kind of parents are you? Are you starving her? Has she been consuming spoiled or highly acidic foods on an empty stomach?" Nathaniel looked as though he had been struck by lightning. His knees gave out, and he staggered, catching himself against the wall to keep from collapsing. He reached out with a violently trembling hand to take the medical report. His eyes were bloodshot. "Doctor, can it be cured?" he asked, his voice cracking. The doctor sighed heavily. "You caught it early enough. As long as she takes her medication, strictly adheres to a nutritional diet, and maintains a low-stress environment, her stomach lining can heal, but if you had kept treating her like this, she would have developed a perforated ulcer or much, much worse. It was only a matter of time." I stood in the hallway, looking at Nathaniel with absolute ice in my veins. "Do you understand what a monster you've been now?" Nathaniel buried his face in his hands, sliding down the wall until he hit the floor, letting out a raw, suppressed sob. The comments were relentless. "Serves you right. This is what your blind favoritism gets you. Thank God Grandma took her to the hospital. She just derailed the entire terminal cancer plotline. Grandma is literally Clementine's savior." I'm crying. What's the point of him crying now? Where was this energy for the last 5 years? When we returned to the estate, Nathaniel executed a ruthless purge. He pulled the security footage from the kitchens and the dining rooms. Though some of the archives had conveniently been deleted, he found enough breadcrumbs to piece the horror together. He saw the kitchen staff intentionally serving Clementine cold, days-old leftovers. He saw Isabel sneaking into the fridge to swap Clementine's fresh milk with cartons that had been sitting in the sun. He saw the head housekeeper casually ignoring Clementine when she cried for help. Nathaniel went scorched earth. He didn't just fire the housekeeper and the involved staff. He had his legal team press charges for child endangerment and abuse, ensuring they were hauled out of the estate in handcuffs. As for Isabel, Nathaniel stood over her as she cowered in the corner of the foyer shivering. The blind indulgence that used to soften his eyes was entirely gone. "Isabel, I have never been more disappointed in my life." Isabel threw herself at his legs, sobbing hysterically. "Daddy, I'm sorry. I'll never do it again. Please don't send me away." In the original story, Isabel was the orphan daughter of Nathaniel's late business partner. Because of the beauty mark under her eye, Nathaniel had latched onto her as the physical manifestation of his phantom ideal, his beloved Mrs. Callahan. But now, the real Mrs. Callahan was sitting on a sofa. The halo effect of the stand-in had instantly evaporated. However, I didn't tell Nathaniel to throw her onto the streets. "Send her to a boarding school," I said calmly, taking a sip of tea. "One of those highly disciplined, closed-campus military academies. If she can't learn basic human decency in this house, let the school teach her. She is young enough that her character can still be corrected. If you throw a child to the wolves now, her life is permanently destroyed, and you'll have blood on your hands." Nathaniel listened to me as if I were handing down the word of God. The very next day, Isabel's bags were packed, and she was shipped off to a brutally strict academy in upstate New York. As the car pulled away, she stared at me through the window. The look in her eyes had shifted from spoiled arrogance to a profound, instinctual terror. She finally understood exactly who held the power in the Bancroft empire. With Isabel gone, the air in the estate finally felt breathable. I formally took over every aspect of Clementine's life, her diet, her schedule, her education. As a veteran teacher with 3 decades in the trenches, managing a second grader's curriculum was practically a vacation. I didn't force her into agonizing, high-pressure tutoring sessions. Instead, I spent my days crafting nourishing, gut-healing meals. I sat in the garden with her, planting hydrangeas and feeding the stray cats that wandered onto the grounds. I sat beside her in the evenings, guiding her through her homework, and read to her until she fell asleep. In just 3 short months, Clementine underwent a stunning metamorphosis. Like a wilted sapling finally given water and sunlight, she thrived. The hollow, sickly pallor of her cheeks faded into a healthy, rosy flush. She put on weight, hit a growth spurt, and stopped flinching when doors closed too loudly. Most importantly, she started to smile. She was no longer the terrified, shrinking ghost haunting the corridors of her own home. She learned how to hold my hand and ask for things. She would literally dance around the living room when she finally understood a difficult math concept. And, slowly, she began speaking to Nathaniel again.
Dad.
I painted this in art class today. It's for you. One evening, Clementine nervously approached Nathaniel as he took off his suit jacket, handing him a slightly rumpled watercolor painting. It depicted 3 stick figures, a tall man and an older woman holding hands with a little girl. Above them hung a massive, bright yellow sun. Nathaniel stared at the paper, his eyes instantly brimming with moisture. He took it from her hands with the reverence of a curator handling a priceless artifact. Thank you, Clem. I love it. I'm going to have it framed and hang it right behind my desk at the office. The comments were a sea of absolute bliss.
Sobbing.
Our baby is finally happy. Nate actually looks like a human being now. Character development. All hail Grandma. She is the architect of this piece. Watching the slow, delicate mending of their relationship, I picked up my mug and took a slow sip of chamomile tea. Retirement had taken a rather bizarre detour, but honestly, it wasn't so bad. I thought the quiet days would stretch on forever, until the school announced the fall parent-teacher conferences. Mrs. Callahan, will you come to my parent-teacher conference? Clementine held the school flyer in both hands, looking up at me with a potent mix of eager anticipation and nervous dread. Dad has to fly to Tokyo tomorrow for a merger. He can't make it. I smoothed her hair back from her forehead. Of course I'll go. I'll be right there in your corner. The next day, I dressed in a tailored, understated navy suit, pinned my silver hair up in a flawless French twist, and held Clementine's hand as we walked into the most elite preparatory school in Chicago. The hallways were packed with the city's elite. The parents dripping in Cartier, carrying Birkins, radiating old money and new arrogance. My simple, unbranded attire made me stick out like a sore thumb. As I approached Clementine's classroom, a shrill, condescending voice drifted out into the hallway. Oh, look, that's Clementine Bancroft's desk, right? I heard she used to struggle to even get passing grades, and suddenly she gets a perfect score on the midterms? Please. She obviously cheated. Exactly. That younger sister of hers, Isabel, she was the brilliant one. Too bad, she transferred. Clementine is dull as a brick. There's no way she earned those grades. I felt a cold prickle of irritation at the base of my neck. I pushed the door open and walked in. The 2 women gossiping were dripping in designer logos. They paused and looked at me.
Who are you?
Did you wander into the wrong wing? This is the 2nd grade advanced class. The woman with a rigid blowout sneered, looking me up and down. I calmly walked over to Clementine's desk and took a seat in the small wooden chair. I am Clementine's guardian. I'm here for the conference. The woman with the blowout scoffed loudly. Guardian? Clementine's father is Nathaniel Bancroft. Who the hell are you? The nanny? Sending the hired help to a parent-teacher conference. Clearly, Mr. Bancroft couldn't care less about this kid. The 2nd woman chimed in. The comments instantly ignited. Who do these Botoxed harpies think they are? Rip them apart, Grandma. How dare they insult our Clementine? Nathaniel, bankrupt their husbands immediately. I didn't lose my temper. I simply offered a polite, razor-sharp smile. My exact title is irrelevant. What is relevant is that my girl scored a perfect 100% across the board, securing the top rank in the class. I glanced at the name tag taped to the desk in front of the blowout woman. And your son Preston Montgomery, if I'm reading that correctly? Unless I'm mistaken, Preston barely managed a 65 on his math assessment. Mrs. Montgomery's heavily made-up face contorted. How dare you? Whether I dare or not will be proven the moment the teacher hands out the portfolios, won't it? I calmly adjusted my cuffs. As a parent, you neglect your own child's failing academics, yet you sit here gossiping and throwing baseless accusations of cheating at a child who actually puts in the work. Is this the elite breeding you pay so much tuition for? You dash. Mrs. Montgomery leaped to her feet, pointing a trembling finger in my face. You're just a glorified maid. Do you know who my husband is? One phone call to Mr. Bancroft and you'll be on the street by nightfall. Oh. I raised a single brow. Then make the call. Let's see if Nathaniel Bancroft has the nerve to fire me. Before she could explode, the homeroom teacher walked in, carrying a thick stack of files. Sensing the hostile energy in the room, the teacher cleared her throat. Parents, please take your seats. We are beginning. Mrs. Montgomery dropped into her chair with a violent huff, glaring daggers at me. You're dead, she mouthed. The conference began. The teacher stood at the front, summarizing the midterm metrics. I want to take a moment to highlight one specific student's extraordinary progress. The teacher turned her gaze toward me, her face breaking into a warm, genuine smile. Clementine Bancroft. Not only did she achieve perfect scores in mathematics and literature, but her creative writing submission just won first place in the statewide primary district competition. Let's give her a round of applause. A smattering of polite, confused applause echoed through the room. Most of the parents were staring at me in shock. Mrs. Montgomery looked like she had just swallowed a lemon. Excuse me, Mrs. Montgomery interrupted, raising her hand aggressively. Clementine has historically been a severely underperforming student. This sudden miraculous turnaround, shouldn't we be looking into the, integrity of those scores? She stopped just short of saying the word cheating. The teacher's smile vanished. Mrs. Montgomery, I caution you to watch your tone. The midterm was heavily proctored, and the essays were graded blind by a district panel. Clementine's scores are indisputably authentic. Furthermore, her daily engagement and work ethic have transformed. Every teacher in this faculty has noted it. The teacher's eyes narrowed slightly. Perhaps I should be asking you, Mrs. Montgomery, how you are supervising Preston at home. He sleeps through his morning lectures, rarely turns in his homework, and his 65 in math is frankly generous. We need to see more parental involvement. Publicly humiliated, Mrs. Montgomery flushed a violent shade of magenta, looking as though she wanted the floor to swallow her whole. The comments were cheering like they were at the Super Bowl.
Yes.
Destroy her. Look at that stupid face. Slapped down by the teacher. Our Clementine is a genius. When the conference ended, I held Clementine's hand and walked out into the corridor. The rapid clicking of heels echoed behind us. Mrs. Montgomery practically sprinted to block our path. She was shaking with rage. Don't look so smug. My husband's firm handles Bancroft Holdings logistics contracts. I'm calling him right now, and he's going directly to Mr. Bancroft. She pulled out her phone and hit speed dial. Honey, I'm at the school. The Bancroft's arrogant nanny just humiliated me in front of everyone. Call Nathaniel Bancroft right now and tell him to fire her. She paused, listening to her husband on the other end, before a victorious smirk spread across her face. She hung up. You're finished. My husband is on the phone with Mr. Bancroft's office right now. I looked at her with mild amusement. Is that so? Let's wait a moment then. Less than 3 minutes later, my phone vibrated in my purse. The caller ID read Nate. I answered and put him on speaker. Mrs. Callahan. Nathaniel's panicked voice filled the quiet hallway. Are you alright? Did someone at the school disrespect you? Some idiot named Montgomery. Mrs. Montgomery heard the panic in the untouchable billionaire's voice and instantly turned pale. Yes, Nate. I said languidly. Mrs. Montgomery was just informing me that she's having you fire me. There was a deafening crash on the other end of the line, as if Nathaniel had just kicked his mahogany desk over. Bullshit. Nathaniel roared. Don't you worry about a thing, Mrs. Callahan. I'm calling my legal team right now. We are terminating every single contract with the Montgomery firm. I'm going to bankrupt them by Friday. Put that woman on the phone. Right now. I held the phone out. Mrs. Montgomery took it, her hands shaking so violently she almost dropped it. And Mr. Bancroft. Listen to me very carefully. Nathaniel's voice was a terrifying, absolute zero. Mrs. Callahan is the most revered person in my family. She saved my life. Who the hell do you think you are to speak to her? First thing,